Welcome everybody to Virtual Church number 48. I hope you enjoyed Alison's presentation for Virtual Church 47 with its very searching questions about what to do in this time of enforced waiting. So today I thought I'd look with you at 1 Peter, a letter near the back of the New Testament, and in particular chapter 4 and verse 12, which says, "Dear friends, do not be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come on you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. But rejoice inasmuch as you participate in the sufferings of Christ." I thought it might be useful for us to think about this because, of course, some of us think that it is strange. Why should God let us go through this time of great difficulty? Why doesn't he just click his fingers and magic the pandemic away and let us all come out of lockdown as we so dearly long to do? What could God possibly want through this fiery ordeal? By the way, if you have an older version of the New International Version, they've updated it now, but it said just at the painful trial. And it is definitely fiery in the Greek. And that's really important because we'll see this links up with other times in the scriptures that the fiery trial is mentioned. The particular trial that Peter has in mind, if this is the Apostle Peter writing, then he's thought to have been executed in the persecutions of Nero. And Nero began those after Rome was burned in AD 64. He thought that the best scapegoat he could find was the Christian community. And he had all sorts of horrible things done to us. He was a mad dictator of the kind that's become all too familiar in the 20th and 21st centuries. So for Peter, this is a valedictory epistle. It's a letter of farewell, I think, trying to encourage people to endure in times of actually greater difficulty than those that we're going through. In fact, one of the things that lockdown might do for us is give us an insight to what life might be like in countries where the churches are persecuted, where you're not allowed to meet together, where you may have painful choices between your faith and your job, or even between your faith and the well-being of your family. So this is a particularly fiery trial. But interestingly, Peter doesn't spell that out. He doesn't say this is specifically for the persecuted, because he wants all Christians in any kind of difficulty, whenever we labor under painful burdens, to be able to look for God's purpose in it. That's why he expresses himself in this very generalized way, because he wants to look beyond the immediate circumstances that he is going through and bring words of comfort and encouragement to all of us. So he talks about this as an ordeal. Sometimes we find the word trial. In fact, we will find it in another reading from chapter 1 of Peter's letter. It doesn't mean we're on trial. It doesn't mean God is trying to find us guilty, or that he's prosecuting us in some way. It's actually about us certainly searching out our values, and it's about God working through his purposes in that search so that we can decide what matters most in our life. Whether our circumstances are the key thing about us, whether all we're interested in is pleasure, comfort, entertainment, or whether we are going to set our hearts on something more lasting. You see, it's part of 21st century culture, I think, that we've given God a job description. And this is a job description. It's to make sure that nothing unpleasant ever happens to anyone. And of course, we all know life isn't like that, that actually everybody goes through difficulties and has struggles to cope with in their life that nobody escapes. And the Christian faith isn't about giving us some sort of guarantee that we'll have a life in a style that never happens, or at least doesn't happen this side of heaven. It's about giving us strength to endure, resources to call upon, and goals to set our hearts on that will see us through those difficulties. And that's very much what the Apostle Peter is writing about in this, his first letter. As he faces an ultimate test, he tries to help us in the test that we're going to. So I'm going to read from the first chapter. He's clearly referring back to this in chapter 4. He begins his letter by talking about our wonderful hope. We've got new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus from the dead. We've got an inheritance that can never perish, spoil, or fade, he says. This is kept in heaven for you, who through faith are shielded by God's power until the coming of salvation. And in this you greatly rejoice. So he's giving us a whole lot of positives there, which are our goals and our aims and the things that enable us to endure. And then he says, in all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. He's not just talking about one kind of trial, all kinds of different trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus is revealed. So they were going to have to let go of their comforts in a time of difficulty and persecution. They were going to have to let go of material things, of gold. But in doing so, they had something of greater worth than gold. This faith kept in heaven for them, this companionship of Jesus. And so inasmuch as there's a trial, a test going on, it's just asking us to decide which are the most important things in our lives. And it's calling us to set our goals on something higher than material comforts. So I'm going to read one more passage from the Bible, again about the fiery trial. And I do wonder whether Peter was thinking about this in writing his letter. This is from Malachi, the very last book of the Old Testament. And it describes God as like a refiner's fire or launderer's soap. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. So he's describing there the process of heating up precious metals when they come in their raw state, so that everything melts and the lightweight stuff just floats to the top, the stuff that's of little value, and it leaves behind the gold, the silver, the stuff that is of real, lasting worth. So when we say, during the time of lockdown and isolation and uncertainty and worry, that we have to dig deep, let's use this time to dig deep into the good things that God has for us, an inheritance that can't be taken away, a hope that rests on the sure foundation of Jesus Christ risen from the dead. Then we're allowing God to do that refining work in us, to get rid of some of the dross from our lives, our obsessions with things that aren't really important, and give our greatest focus to the things that last forever. Our love for God, our love for our neighbour, even our love for ourselves, because we're asked to love our neighbour as ourselves, our love for our brothers and sisters. 3 things will last, we read in Corinthians, through the trials and beyond the gates of death, in that time when we will see face to face: faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these, as I'm sure you'll recall, is love. So let's, through this time of testing, fix our eyes on the love of God. Let us pray. Dear Lord, amid all the uncertainty, the anxiety, the deprivation, and the loneliness, please do your refiner's work in our hearts and help us to become like gold. Amen. And tomorrow, of course, is our communion service. If you have some bread and wine ready, please join me in taking those, and look forward to sharing in virtual church with you then. God bless you.